your expectations. Do not expect that the partner you married, their sole responsibility in life is going to be to make you happy. But if you can recognize that your primary responsibility in life is to make them happy, there aren't many people that won't reciprocate that. And then you get this upward helix of kind of pulling and pushing and encouraging each other, I will say heavenward, right?
That's right.
And it begins to
That's right.
resemble that more and more. I'm Scott Wadsworth, and you are?
Kelly Wadsworth.
And this is Drift, okay? We've been married 46 years, December 14th of this year.
Yep, met in high school.
Where did you guys meet?
The bus.
On the bus?
On the bus, going to school.
Joyce Cermak's bus. The route changed. Joyce had been picking up me and my family at Brock Creek, and then the route changed where we were stopping,
At my stop.
yeah, picking her up.
Yeah.
And it was like
We were in maybe 9th grade, right?
sophomores?
Not sure.
Yeah, but it was like I had hit the lottery, right? All of a sudden the bus ride got a lot more interesting.
If you could, what's been the magic over the years? What's been the glue? What's kept you guys together? If there was one silver bullet,
Commitment. I would
Commitment.
say. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The-
Commitment.
The idea that if you make a promise, you ought to keep it. And
Mhm.
in fact, that's exactly right. Remember listening to Dr. Laura?
Yes, I do.
So Laura Schlesinger was a
We used to listen to her all the time.
talk show host, and she made the observation, and I remember thinking in my own heart, and I don't know if we talked about it, when she said love is not an emotion, because emotions wax and wane like the moon.
Right.
Emotions come and go. Love is a commitment. And we thought,
Yeah, that's right. And so we kind of hung on to that.
interesting.
Yeah.
When's it ever been tested?
47 years, but not steady, just occasionally.
Yeah.
Just occasionally, but then we would fall back on that commitment.
because she was right. Emotions do this. They do this with the pressures of life and with successes and failures and health and kids. But if there's a baseline commitment, not only to the things that we're willing to do to make the marriage succeed, but the things that you're just not willing to do under any circumstance.
That commitment made it so there were other options that were ignored. There were other options that we didn't pay any attention to because they were not options for us.
Because they would violate that commitment.
Yeah.
So those were never brought to the table. It was only how are we going to make it?
Would you guys consider yourselves to be more opposites or
Hmm.
similar?
I don't think we're opposite.
No.
I wouldn't think we're opposite. I think we've grown more similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Uh-huh.
I think we both have had a tendency to make almost an idol out of work, where work has become not just a big thing, but it has become the main event all the time, and that's not always great.
But it has been common ground. And maybe that has been some glue that has been helpful.
And a blue-collar income, most of the time a single blue-collar income, meant that work was work or die, or at least we felt that way.
Unrelenting pressure.
Yeah.
4 kids, 1 income. But there again, we had no other option. Not that we were willing to entertain. Yeah.
And then we haven't brought it to the table yet, but let's bring it to the table now that the glue was really the glue was our shared faith,
Religion.
you know, understanding that existence is not happenstance and that God has an interest. He has an interest, and more importantly, he has an expectation. And that was glue.
That glue. That common ground probably held us together tighter than anything else.
Well, this is not silly. We were having a conversation the other day about a young couple that we're aware of, where the word divorce is something that they use in almost casual conversation as it relates to them and their marriage.
It's very tossed around constantly. Yeah. And I don't think that's very healthy.
And I can remember 2 times that the D word came up in conversations between you and I.
I think that's absolutely right.
I think there was 2 times that the word divorce came up in a serious, disappointed conversation we were having, and that's not a lot of times to,
Right.
because it wasn't an option. It was that commitment forestalled that.
Yeah. I think maturity has helped, especially me. I think a younger version of me was much more difficult than it needed to be, and some decades have helped that a lot.
Younger versions of all of us are more difficult than they need to be.
Yeah.
So Kelly came from an upbringing where her mom and dad split up when you were
7
7.
or 8.
and so that was a big complication for her. My mom and dad just, they hung in there steady. They got 61 or 62 years.
They did.
But boy, they weren't easy years. My mom and dad never learned how to share power very well, but we have.
I think we share power quite well.
How do you handle it, or how do you handle it when one person is maturing faster than the other? When you feel like one of you guys is just kind of dragging behind you?
I think I was dragging behind for a few decades, but I think.
Would you agree with that?
Would you?
I don't know.
You can agree.
Well, how about this? How about what you saw modeled in your household, which is so hard for us to think about in any other way? I mean, what we see is obviously the right way, turned out to have not been the way that you and I finally come to, that has been so sweet. I'll say sweet.
Right. That's true. I think we've looked at our parents and used their example somewhat, but I think we've also mostly created our own example.
I think that's exactly right. I think we learned whatever we were given by our parents, and it was much. Our parents give us much. You learn, yes, you learn and remember more from the negative examples. You think, I'm not doing it like that.
Right. But they gave us a lot of good too.
Boy, howdy.
They gave us a lot of good things, and then we created our own thing.
And I feel like God gave us a lot of good things that we didn't come to the table with.
That's right. That's right.
What were some of those things you feel like your parents passed down that you're grateful for?
I'm grateful. My mother, we always had dinner. We always had dinner. It was never stand over the sink. It was never fast food. It was never anything but dinner. Candle in the middle of the table. Table set. Now, sometimes it was a little tense around the table. A little quiet. But there was always dinner. And to me, that is important. That's an important thing.
I feel like it taught you to like stick out through hard things.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And Kelly has been so good about her love language being how she feeds her people.
And that might be why, yeah.
Well, it was a strong thing, but you remember Adam's conversation? He was in a German class, I think.
Yes,
he was in high school, and somebody asked the question, well, how many of you have breakfast with family? And he was the only kid who raised his hand.
And he said, well, yeah, every day. We have waffles or pancakes or eggs or I don't know, something. We always have breakfast. And we always had breakfast.
And a lot of the people in his class, including his teacher, did not believe him. They didn't believe him. That was too much of an anachronism, right? That's from the past. Well, if that is an anachronism, it certainly explains part of some of the malfunction.
He needs to go away.
Take the memo, buddy, right there. All right, there we go.
What are a couple of things the staples that kind of
how about you?
Well,
what are the habits?
Work.
What are the things that you do without even thinking that are just you feel like they're
How about this? I don't know if it were, so this was not passed down to me, to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, yes.
And so it was passed down to me in that, wait, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and give her all the room to operate that I can, instead of micromanaging or...
Yeah, that is right.
So that was passed down to me from the negative side of the equation. Give your spouse room to operate.
I think for me, I don't know if it came from my parents, but I learned from him of one time when we had a toolbox stolen right off the back of a truck. It was all the tools we owned in this little box. And I was beside myself, so mad that that toolbox had gotten left on the back of the truck and stolen. But it was only a few weeks later that a checkbook bounced, a couple of checks bounced. And he said, it's all right. So I learned, I still remember that and how deeply I changed that moment. I changed that moment. I will never react so poorly again because he didn't.
You know, one thing we've learned is that from watching so you can learn a lot about how to heal your own marriage by watching your friends as they fall apart.
Yeah.
And taking time to say, well, what could they do different? And what does that mean about what we could do different? And we recognized a few times that there were people that we knew and loved who had, at some level, they would rather be right than happy.
And we started using that phrase. Wow, they'd rather be right than happy. And how destructive that is.
And maybe that means we'd rather be happy than right.
Mm-hmm.
That was helpful.
That was really helpful. We still use that, not with each other, but we bring it to each other's attention, and especially to myself. Am I just trying to be right here?
How do you get better at that? How do you get better at catching yourself?
C.S. Lewis helped us.
I think life helps us.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities. So many.
The idea of pride is something that kind of cankers our soul, right? And Ezra Taft Benson had a lot of good things to say, and C.S. Lewis had good things to say. And as we kicked this around, we realized that pride being pretty much, I'm not talking about integrity, I'm talking about enmity and resentment and being overly competitive. And we coined a term, PMI, pride manifesting itself. And sometimes I'll get on some kind of a tear, and maybe if I have presence of mind enough, I'll say, wait a minute, that's PMI, isn't it? And she might say, well, yeah, actually that kind of is. That's pride manifesting itself in any of 10,000 ways.
Unlimited. Yeah.
So it seems like you guys both have the freedom to call each other out on those things.
Mm-hmm. I think
when we're feeling good.
When that's not always been the case. I think I was too immature for that for many years.
What changed?
But maturity, age, life. But I think now, yes, and I actually welcome it. Tell me, what can I do? What can I do to make that not happen again? Yeah. And I welcome that criticism.
She does.
So she does. Where did the motivation for wanting to be more mature come from? What inspired you to want to step it up?
I wanted there to not be contention, and there was a few times, and I realized, well, perhaps it's me, perhaps. And I learned that some things don't matter. Some things do, but there's a whole lot that doesn't matter.
That falls back into that, well, do I want to be right or happy?
And I decided it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Yeah. So that helped me a lot.
You know, something we've learned, so we watch Active Self-Protection together, right?
It's a YouTube channel.
What's his name? John Correa?
Yeah, great guy.
And it opens your eyes to being situational awareness and identifying threats and de-escalating and removing yourself from, it's great. And something he said we heard him say last month, your ego is not your amigo.
Yeah.
So true.
So true.
Ego only makes your problems worse most of the time.
That is so true. I think another thing that we have come across maybe our whole life is that we don't keep track.
Right.
We don't keep track of my good deeds and your good deeds. And when I go on a trip and when I go to lunch with friends, or none of that is ever kept track of. Yep. To keep track of that is destructive.
It tears your relationship apart. And the other thing that from the beginning, now we were single income for a long time. Yeah. And then when Clayton was in 6th grade, you went to work at Fullerton?
Seventh or something, yeah.
She went to work as a teacher's aide. Mm-hmm. But it was never your money and my money. It was our money. It was our money because if you're not a team, all right, that's the word. If you are not a team, then you're not a team. And if you're not a team, you're not going to make it. And if you are a team, you've got a fighting chance. You have a fighting chance of making it. And it gets better than you can imagine.
There are many instances where I think, oh my goodness, I can't believe how many nice things he's done. You know, yesterday, can I pick up that for you? Yes, please, that would be great. And then I'm not keeping track of that, and neither is he. But there were plenty of opportunities for me to return that favor in some way, and I'm anxious to. So it's good.
I don't even come close to keeping up with all of the wonderful things she does for me. I don't even come close. The advantage with this girl is she signifies the small things I do at a much higher value than the zillions of things she does. And maybe that's
a division of responsibility. You know, I'm in charge of pretty much these things, and you're in charge of pretty much these things, and there's some overlap, and we discuss that overlap. Figure it out.
So I hate to pull you away from this topic for just a sec, but you said something that's hard for me to believe. I do believe you.
Oh, good.
When the check bounced, you're not lax with your money like that.
Oh.
How did you? What caused you to respond like that instead of how?
Because she was working as hard as she could every day, every way. We had 4 kids. And I was trying it as a small contractor, undercapitalized, and she was burdened with the books on top of every other thing. And at some point it was like, who can blame her for letting that drop through the cracks? The blame was mine for not hiring an accountant and taking that off of her plate. And we do videos about being successful as a contractor and failing as a contractor. I'm here to sit before you and tell you it's a mistake to drop that on your wife's shoulders and figure, well, she can take care of that because she can. But man, it is a lot to ask.
I more or less took care of it, but there was a lot of mistakes because it's not my deal. It's not my thing.
So I'm sensing you guys, maybe one of the common themes is you guys have very realistic expectations for each other.
That's a good observation. Right. That's a key. That is a key to being happy in marriage, is to have realistic expectations.
And I have recently learned that most failed relationships come from unmet expectations. You have it. This is what I'm expecting, but this is what's happening.
That's right. And here's what I'm expecting I'll have to do. I'll have to do this. But my expectations for coming back. So I can remember, heck, I don't know, it may have been in the 4 years we dated when I had decided that I just must marry this girl. I don't know, but somewhere when I was paying attention to how to become a good husband. I remember reading more than once, it's not finding the right person, it's becoming the right person. And I thought, well, how bogus is that? I'm not interested in becoming anything. I'm interested in having and finding and being made happy by someone who's the right person. Well, I can tell you that observation about becoming the right person is the only way.
We have become so much that way that we're pretty much the same person now.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
Kelly, what do you expect? What are your expectations of Scott? What does he need to be? What's the minimum standard?
Oh, he so far exceeds all of my expectations.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even have any. Well, I know this, that I have to keep my mouth shut. If I decide I'd like this thing, I just kind of don't say anything because it's going to happen that day. If I could you move this light fixture over here? Yes, on it, and it will happen. So I have to and want to do those things when it's appropriate, not just on a whim. Like, I want this right now. Because he will. He meets all of my desires immediately.
Squirming here, squirming.
Yeah,
It's not entirely true, but
Yeah,
but that's the strength of her personality. She sees the small things as big in that way. And I'm so thankful because going the other way, I think she sees the big things as small. Okay, she minimizes the problems and emphasizes the successes. And that has to be, if 2 of you aren't doing that at least part of the time, you got problems.
It's a team.
Yeah.
If you're not a teammate, you're not on the team.
That's right.
Talk to me about roles. Who does what? Who
Very traditional roles.
Traditional.
Very traditional roles. I stayed home with 4 kids for, 18 years.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And loved every moment of it.
Except for the times when she was so overwhelmed,
When it was hard,
when she
yeah.
wanted a job so bad, she wanted a job, and then
Please, can I have a job?
And then she'd talk herself back from the edge of the cliff, and man, things would be humming along in a heavenly way. But I'll tell you what, if that's the thing that will mature adult humans, is having children. Children open to your view, breathtaking vistas of your own inadequacy.
That's
Yeah.
true. That is so true.
And if you think it's going to be any easier when they become adult,
It's only harder.
yeah, you just keep believing that as long as you can.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you used to be really difficult in your 20s that are just trivial now?
Oh.
Or some of the things you used to stress about that
Huh.
just don't really matter anymore.
I'm sure they're there. I just can't think of
Well,
them.
the thing that comes to my mind is money, because when your kids are small and there's only one check, there's just never enough money. There's never enough.
Right.
And that was relentless for a long time. It got a lot better when you became a teacher's aide. We had health insurance for really the first time.
That's true. But I mean, when the kids were very young,
I tell you what,
how did we do it? I don't know.
one of the things that was a stressor was the interaction of in-laws. Our parents, our respective parents. Parents almost can't help putting pressure on their adult children. They almost can't help that. And we had quite a bit of that from
We did?
both sides.
For good and sometimes for not so good.
Yeah.
We did move away when our kids were very young, before we even had them all. And that was a wonderful thing. We moved far, far away and had some contact, of course, but
phone
not
calls
like
were,
now.
Phone calls were expensive and letters were
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah, and we spent some years depending on each other 100%.
In fact, we would recommend that to a young couple. We didn't leave Roseburg to get away from our people. We left
No.
Roseburg because of economic necessity. Unemployment was 23%
Right.
here.
And they were not thrilled that we left.
They were devastated.
It was hard on them, but they could see that it was good.
Yeah.
That it was good.
Did you still have people filling a mentor role in your life?
Oh, man.
Absolutely, lots of them.
Our church community back there embraced us and mentors. We had good examples, and we had people that we could call if we were in a bind. But the big deal was that we were 1,200 miles away, and the fact of the matter was the only people we had were each other.
Yeah.
And it was lonely, and it was exhilarating, and wouldn't trade.
And we look back on that as a fairy tale.
Yeah.
It was that wonderful. Yeah.
You didn't have other options. You didn't have. You had to learn to
We figured it out.
deal with each other.
Yeah, that's
work
right.
with each other.
That's
Yep.
right.
Huh.
Yeah, it was to Powell, Wyoming.
Yeah.
And it was burning the boats. There was no going back. And while we were back there, and I think I got a job at $7 or $8 an hour, and we were able to send we left here with a couple of small debts, and we got those paid off, gone, while we were back there working at $7 or $8 or $9. And that was because she was so resourceful. Most of the protein we ate for the first 12 months we were there was cottontail rabbit, because I had a .22 and I had 22 long rifle shells, and you could walk out in the desert, and the rule
We
was
would drive out there in the evenings.
yeah, and shoot 4 or 5 or 10 cottontails and bring them home. And she cooked rabbit every way it could be cooked. How about that? So for any of you young couples who are sitting there thinking, how are we going to do it?
I don't know if they'll let you do that anymore.
Oh yeah, they will. There's some analog to that. But the takeaway is the resourcefulness of a wonderful woman. Okay, resourceful, and not a word of complaint, because I'd bring them back clean. There's a real trick to cleaning cottontails. Yeah, all right.
But they did kill an elk one time, him and a friend, and we had no place to put it. So a friend of mine had a pressure canner, and I think I scraped up the money and bought a pressure canner, and we canned that whole elk.
The whole elk was put into quart jars.
Quart jars. And we lived off of that for a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
Amazing. Do you have any other rules or things that you do? Like, I would guess that you guys don't go very long with conflict. You don't let it
No.
pass a certain-
Not now. I think we did earlier in our younger days, but I don't think now.
Something I'm not proud of is I'm a stonewaller. Okay, I hate conflict so bad I will just pretend it doesn't exist, and that's not very good. The only thing to recommend that is I don't often say things that I regret later, but it's not the healthiest way, right?
Right. Doesn't mean we don't have a little conflict now and then, but it's usually over with pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think our maturity level is such that neither one of us wants to live like that.
Yeah.
So we're going to get rid of it as quick as we can.
So here was a rule for me, and I think it's what God would have men, the way God would have men think, and that is to be faithful to your wife means you never even flirt with another woman. Your conversation with another woman is never anything except polite, good morning, good morning. You don't follow that up with, what did you do this weekend? There are a million leading questions you can ask that don't go anywhere positive. The blessing of working construction was I never had to work with other women.
Oh.
Anyway, that was a blessing. As a young man, I just went out and banged heads with the guys, you know? And so, here's another thing, guys. Stay away from pornography because it is being unfaithful. It's being unfaithful. And it's been a blessing in my life that I was never pulled into that. Now, if I was 20 years old today, it'd be a harder thing to avoid.
It's so much different now.
Yeah.
So much different.
So, tell me about. I see discipline as an underlying theme with you guys too. You think about like lust and temptation. You
Yeah.
guys are very disciplined and not getting distracted and not, putting yourself in scenarios where you'd be in danger.
Where that's true.
Where
That's
does that
true.
come from? Did that come from your parents, or is that developed?
I think that came from religion.
From our church community, that's reinforced. You don't have to read much scripture before you realize that if you look upon a woman to lust after her in your heart, you have committed adultery already. I read a book by, I think, Dean Larson, The Cost of Winning, crossing the wrong finish line first. And the way he illustrated that was if you drive by a bank and you look over and you say to yourself, if I knew I could get away with it, I'd walk in there and rob that bank. I would rob it if I knew I could get away with it. I think that's how he equated what Jesus said about if you look upon a woman to lust after her in your heart, you've committed adultery already. If you set it up in your own mind that if I could get away with that, boy, I would do that. That's being unfaithful.
That is. I think that we have plenty of opportunities to have lots of outside interests, and I have many, and I have to be careful. I have reined it back a bit, but I know that there's maybe if you don't kind of tame that a little bit, you're gone every night.
Doing
something. And maybe it's a good thing. But maybe staying home one night is a good thing too. Yeah. And we're at a different phase of life now. Now I can indulge in those activities, those hobbies much more.
She's a fiddle player. She's an old-time fiddle player.
But even now, I go, yeah, that one, I'm going to miss that one today. I'm just going to miss it. And I know he does the same thing. Yeah. Because this relationship is, of course, the most important. It comes first. Sometimes there's things that threaten it, but in the big picture, we wouldn't let anything threaten it.
Yeah. And that's a mistake that young people make sometimes. They think that the relationship with the children is the first relationship.
Right.
Baloney. The pre-existing relationship of the husband and the wife is the first relationship, and then the healthy relationships and responsibilities for the children under the guidance of the God who gave us this life and this capacity to bring forth new life. That's the hierarchy. People who let the relationship with the children supersede the relationship with their spouse blow it for the children and for themselves.
Interesting. You kind of mentioned hobbies, and you guys set aside some of the things you enjoy for each other. How do you do that? I feel like it's too hard for most married couples. It's hard for me to just.
It came easy to us
you
because
want to watch the show that you don't really care about.
Right.
How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I tell you how
I've been watching some medieval stuff lately, medieval swords
and my all-time favorite movie is the A&E version of Pride and Prejudice. We watch that over and over and over.
Crossover.
Yeah, give and take, right? But kids hammer that out of you. Having children and being a good parent necessarily means, for a period of time, I'm just not going to get to do the things I want.
Unless you share that with your children, and that works. Yeah. Now we can share it with our grandchildren much easier than we could share it with our own kids. Yeah. So that's working well. But
so probably one of my last questions. I've only been married about 12 years, so a quarter of what you guys have been married. And in my head, some things just magically get easier as I get older. And the longer I'm married, the more I realize it's not true. A lot of things still take work. Is there anything that still just takes constant work that hasn't gone away? not in a bad sense. But
Yeah.
it's something that you just always have to continually work at, just so that younger couples can have
Right.
realistic expectations.
So there's that word.
There it is.
I think you have to continually work at and be aware of what your expectations are. Because if you don't think about and articulate to yourself, well, should I expect? Is it reasonable for me to expect that?
Right. And I would say that there are situations that I know after many years that is very uncomfortable for him. So why would I force that to happen? Just
And vice
for
versa.
my own, just because I want to? No, I don't do that. I maybe did, but now I know there's no reason to do that. Yeah.
So here's something that I have told friends in an offhand and flippant way, but it is so true. That when you're raising those kids and you're in this huge storm of music lessons and sporting events and parent-teacher conferences and getting them to do their homework and knowing when it's a hill to die on and when it's not, and it's just this bubbling cauldron of making humans out of little animals. One of the biggest blessings in our life has been to get to the end of that and suddenly you have an empty nest.
Yeah.
And to find out, wow, we still
Yeah.
like each other.
That's right. I think that's a point when some people just say, well, now what?
Now what?
Oh, we went, yay.
Yay.
We didn't have 1 second of,
Oh, we're so sad the last child is
no,
gone.
we were so happy to see ya.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
It's because we had kept this relationship as the real relationship, and the spin-off, the rest of it was important, but not as important as this one. And now, how long have we had an empty nest? Clayton is how old? 34?
15 years?
15 years?
Yeah.
They have been the best 15 years of the 48.
But those relationships with our kids are also wonderful. Wonderful.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're very good. But everything about our marriage, I think, has been improving steadily for a while.
I think so. And some of that is the pressure of life has gotten a little easier.
Yeah.
But other pressures have come in to take its place. So you're never gonna have a pressure-free life.
No.
That's good insight.
But you choose your hard.
You choose your hard.
It's hard to be busy. It's hard not to be busy. It's hard to be, whatever it is. It's hard to be a parent. It's hard not to be a parent. It's hard to be a child. It's hard to be an orphan. And most of the things in life are things that we have something to say about. Now, not everything, but we can usually choose our hard.
If one of you guys didn't like work so much, do you think it would have worked out?
Not as good.
No.
Not as good. Yeah.
It's been a race for me to even come close to keeping up with
And
her.
I feel the same. Yeah. We truly don't hate work at all. We love it. We love it. And we have talked about how come all of our friends are going on these fancy trips and we just stay home and work. It's because it's what we want.
And it was because survival required it when it was hand to mouth for a long time. Hand to mouth.
Are you thankful for that pressure? Do you feel like it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a forge environment, right? It softens us. We become able to be shaped. And if we accept the shaping, boy, we're radically different.
I came from hardworking parents. So did he. I mean, nobody in our lineup has ever been
Not working.
Yeah. So it was an easy thing. But it's been really great to learn how to do things together. Life together, kids together.
Who keeps the channel alive?
Scott. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but she keeps pushing me out there and encouraging me. Okay, what are you doing in the house? I don't know. It's been its own curious set of pressures and
It has.
and
And
gifts and
something
blessings.
so unexpected. Nobody would have planned for anything like this.
Yeah. And if we would have known all of the costs and all of the benefits, I don't know that we would have chosen.
I don't know.
But choose your
here we
hard.
are. Mhm.
Choose your hard.
Yeah. Okay. What to kind of wrap it up? What do you tell a young couple? If you can only tell them one or two things.
Oh, I look at those young couples and think, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea how wonderful this is going to be if you let it get one. If you let that happen,
Yeah.
you let your pride go and your maturity grow.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
Yeah. And your expectations, do not expect that the partner you married, their sole responsibility in life is going to be to make you happy. But if you can recognize that your primary responsibility in life is to make them happy, there aren't many people that won't reciprocate that. And then you get this upward helix of kind of pulling and pushing and encouraging each other, I will say heavenward, right?
That's right.
And it begins
That's
to
right.
resemble that more and more.
Those young couples really have no idea. We had no idea.
Yeah.
We did not sit down before we married and made a big plan of this is kind of what we didn't do any of that.
Okay, but here's some advice. Don't shack up. Okay, just don't do that. The message of our culture now is that our sexuality is a toy. It's no toy. It's the best gift that there is, but it is cement, it's glue. It's a God-given reinforcement so that two people that are vulnerable and weak can form a union, become a single organism. Don't throw it away, don't cheapen it.
True. I would add that we surrounded ourselves with friends that thought the same way we did.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would go, oh, okay, they're doing it. I guess we're going to do it.
Yeah.
They're making it. We'll make it.
Yeah.
We looked at them and they probably didn't even know what an influence they had on us.
Can you remember going to someone's house for an evening when things had been hard at home for a while, for a day or a week or 2 weeks, and come away after that distraction of the visit and feel like we could lay down our little grudges or whatever for a while?
I do remember that.
Would you have been able to make your marriage thrive this long without that accountability or community around you? Do you think it?
It would sure have been harder. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think if you don't surround yourself with people who have similar intentions of doing something because of a commitment and a promise, the value of your own promise diminishes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Keep your expectations reasonable. Don't.
Yeah.
This unmet expectation being a cause of so much discontent is really true. And I remember being that way about little things, like, well, not that Christmas is little, but I would have this massive idea of how Christmas should be. And then when it didn't happen, I was just really sad. So.
And on the other hand, I would have this certainty that we just couldn't really afford Christmas this year. We can't. And then she would, in wisdom, push us a little further into a Christmas with the kids that I was very happy about. And yet, after a period of time, it turned out to have been wisdom. Some of the things that at the time seemed
hard and unreasonable.
Turned out to have been exactly the right thing. So 2 are about 10 times smarter than 1.
Yeah, good point.
I like that. Anything else you want to add? Any regrets to do differently?
Oh, I'm sure I have regrets, but I have lived my life hoping to never have to go back and visit regrets. But I'm sure they're there.
Yeah. I don't know, it's getting short though. I mean, we can feel the clock running out, which is
definitely
a strange thing.
You are sure that you're going to be 32 forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the cliches and aphorisms that we read, a lot of them are true. And the one that strikes me as being appropriate right now is that life is what happens while you're making other plans.
How do we end these videos? What do we do from here?
I don't know. I got work to do. I got to go.
She sat here long enough. So let's end it like this. Young people, you're coming of age at a time and in a world that devalues marriage, that will tell you that you can't find someone, and if you do find that the self is the prime motivation. That's a lie. That's a terrible lie. Don't give up on marriage.
Yeah. Keep your expectations reasonable.
And put more expectation on yourself
than on the other person.
And when that person crosses your path,
Get over it.
yeah, don't miss the boat. 15 years old on the school bus. How about that? If you're still here watching, I guess there's no better way to get out of this than to say,
Keep up.
thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.